You're listening to the Lama podcast. I'm Gunjan.
I'm Rajiv.
Please join me in welcoming our guest, Kavitha. Kavitha is my epitome of bravery in twists and turns of blockchain, where lines of code beat the future and fortune shift with the hashtags. Her heart is of gold and brain is of titanium. But beneath this gold and titanium lies a journey of personal self transformation. I want to pause and hand over to Kavitha. Over to you, Kavitha.
Now,
Just walk us through
before you
your
hand it over
journey.
to Kavitha, I want to add a couple of things.
Please go ahead.
So, yeah, I was reflecting before the recording that I know her for almost now 20 plus years.
24,
And
almost 24.
almost, yeah, almost, yes, exactly.
Girl maths.
So, and in Bangalore, and I remember that when the first it was I think the Times of India article on me about my I had published the driving handbook, and they did actually a couple of articles on me that they wanted to promote safe driving and all that. And Kavitha was one of the very first ones to actually reach out to me to partner and see how we can improve, Bangalore driving society and all that. And and me, my wife, I don't know if my kids were there, but we went into her coffee shop. And the first thing that struck me was that the coffee shop had a wall full of books. And I just fell in love with that ambiance and everything. And so, she's been my good friend, and I'm sure that the listeners will really, really love the discussion. It's a very wide-ranging, or it's going to be a wide discussion, and she is literally busting through. I would say she has busted all the social norms that you can think of. So on to you, Kavita.
Thank you, Rajiv, and thank you, Gunjan. Um, that reminds me, Rajiv, I still have some of those books from back when I
Wow.
had the cafe. The cafe was called Brew Bakers. Brew your, ideas, and it's a pun kind of a thing, brew coffee, brew your ideas, and, all the baking and all of that. But yes, I think people came into that cafe mainly for the books. I mean, back in those days, there were enough coffee shops around in that area where we had, but
Yeah.
people mainly came in for the books and to find a quiet corner to work. Those used to be my regulars usually. And we used to allow them to borrow the books as well. They could borrow the books for a week for it and then bring it back. And if they wanted to take the book, we actually had that as well. They had to bring a book and exchange the book if they wanted to kind of take those books. But that's so much about that. Um, thank Gunjan, you introduced me, and those introductions constantly keep happening, right? And they're all most of the time restricted to one kind of me. And uh, with social media's advent, we started posting about what we do, who we are, and all of that. And I think that that began with my races. The races that I was directing from that period is when Facebook, actually Orkut.
Global races, right? The global
Yeah, global
races, that's
races,
important.
yeah,
Yeah. Global
races.
races.
That was when Facebook just started to take off, and everybody wanted to be on Facebook. Orkut had a short lifespan at that time, but then Facebook gave all those features that you could do, and everyone who knows me or interviews me today starts introducing me as a race director. And suddenly, it's like an epiphany kind of a thing. A few days ago, I was like, somebody reached out and actually wanted to interview and said, you have done all of these things, we wanted to interview. And they know that I'm doing solos at this time, but the introduction was going to be about me being a race director. And that really shook me up a little bit. I'm like, there is so much more, and I've done so much more. And I'm an engineer. People don't even recognize that. People don't even actually, I think, know that. that I'm an engineer, and
entrepreneur.
an entrepreneur, and this is not my first rodeo. I have done plenty, and I was the first in many other areas, not just a race women, not just a race director in India, not just the women race director in India, not just the first ultra running in India, but there were many other firsts. To walk back a little bit, in 1990, actually 7, after I graduated, I started my first company, probably one of the first women in the hardcore hardware areas of computers, building networks, building servers from ground up, literally going to the Chinese shops to buy parts. The motherboards were only found in those on the Chinese shops back when computers, you could actually, get your hands
Assemble
on
and yes,
parts.
exactly.
Yeah. So we were assembling parts, my partner then and I, my life partner and I then at time, we were assembling these computers. Our one bedroom was full of these parts that we were tinkering with and how to make them more efficient, faster, get our hands on these little bit pieces and parts and, building our own little network in the house and testing it and all of that. I've done all of that. And I wish I had pictures. Back then, you didn't have cell phone cameras, buying these, film cameras was
Fancy
expensive.
camera.
It used to cost, I think, close to $2,000
Yeah.
in those days to buy a Nikon camera. And you had to save for,
Yes.
Yes.
while to buy
Yes.
one of those. And I did buy one of those, but then you spend most of your time taking pictures of nature and all of that, not computer parts. Who thought you were going to post them? Who thought you was going to, do all of that?
Social media had not yet come to
None
the
of that. I
forefront.
mean, you didn't share all of this. You just did. I mean, you
Yes.
just did because your heart was in it. You just did it. So, and then, I got all of these, and then I went out, as an entrepreneur, got some good contracts with Chase Manhattan Bank was one of our biggest contracts back then to, actually, we got this before the Y2K was popular, to manage the servers, redo their, maintain the servers and all of that, and it was a big contract, financial industry and all of that was very nice. And then we had even shifted their service from Y2K, made them enable the Y2K processes and all of that. So having done done those, I came to, India to set up a data center in India. And I was only meeting men, and I was trying to build a network, and every person I met was a man. I went to Hitachi. There was, so, and it was all like, I was surrounded by these men who hardly um, understood that I could actually speak the language, the technical language. And I knew the part, and I knew what this would do, what that would do, what, what was needed. And they tried to, and they would typically, they asked me for a meeting and I said, I want to build a data center in India. This is all that is needed. This is the paper. This is my business plan. And they were like, oh, okay. And then they called me for a meeting. I went for a meeting, and they wanted to tell me that, oh, the networks as the war are changing. And I was like, I know, this is why I wanted to meet you guys, because I know that Hitachi is making one of the first of its kind computers for cloud computing. And the moment that word came out of my mouth, there was just silence in the room.
I know.
Kavitha, you wanted
They
to
didn't
break that
expect me to
stereotype,
know.
or you were like, I don't even care what they think. I want to do what I want to do. Or you wanted to break that stereotype that, okay, I'm a woman and this is the first thing that's going on in their head. And did you carry that thing that, going as a woman in a room full of men and they'll be judging me for each and every word that I'll be saying? That ever crossed your head?
I think that was the problem, because that didn't cross my head ever. And I keep doing that. And then I keep getting shocked even today that they're shocked. There is one term that
Yeah,
that
so
is
busting through, that's exactly. So the busting through the lies that we are told in, society, that women cannot be XYZ, or men cannot do XYZ. So I think that's exactly what we want to, this like fascinating backdrop story that you have.
There's a tagline, Gunjan, that I have this maybe for probably since ever I started writing poetry, and then people, I started sharing on Facebook. There was this, there used to be this section where you could write notes.
Right.
I think initial days of Facebook, I started writing there, and I started talking about politics and all of that. And there was a lot of backlash when I would talk about that, and especially coming from a woman, strong opinions. So I put this tagline there saying, "I'm either foolish because I'm brave, or I'm brave because I'm foolish." Because if you're a fool, you don't know what the world is like. So you're brave. You think you're brave, and you do all these things because you don't care what the world thinks. Or either, it's the other way around. You're either become brave, you're a fool because
Yeah.
to the
Yeah.
world, because you're brave, and you
Yeah.
you consider yourself brave, and consciously you're brave. So I don't know which one it is. I'm somewhere, so I
No, no,
find
but it no,
myself
but it may not be, because I think the world is also stupid.
so I don't
So
know
I
what
would
it,
say,
yeah.
yeah, so I would say that, see, this is where I think the biggest thing is that, we stereotype everything so much.
Yes.
And that, not the society, but that, that rubs onto us.
Yes.
And then, if we do something contrary to the lies we have been told throughout our life, we think that we are being either courageous or brave and this and that. But I think no. I personally think that, the ingenuity is that you are what you are. Let the world figure it out.
Absolutely. And that the world is still trying to figure me out. It's failing very badly. So I get slaughtered into their own ideation of who I am. And that is what I'm trying to tell people. No, I'm not that. I'm neither this, neither that, none of those. I'm just me. I just do what I do because I want to do it. I'm
Yes.
not doing it because I'm trying to, again, coming back to, I'm not trying to burst a myth. I'm not trying to burst your bubble. I'm not trying to um, ruin your peace. I'm just trying to be me. You don't need to be, subjected to horrors, my horrors.
Yeah.
you know, I'm not trying to, shift your, ideation of whatever the culture, the, woman, man. And we don't have that ideas of woman, man anymore, because there's so many people in between who want to be known otherwise. So why are we
Yeah.
only talking about that? We could be talking about anything.
Yeah.
And famously, my boyfriend once upon a time wrote to me saying, he broke up with me, and he wrote a letter to me. And if he listens to this, he'll know who he is. Um, wrote to me saying that, I would have loved you. I could have continued to love you without being told not to love you by my parents or anybody, if you could just behave like a girl.
Blessing in disguise, Kavitha. Good.
Yeah, so apparently, his parents said I could not be a good
So
daughter-in-law or
so so
a good
what was
wife.
your response?
We're not together, are we?
No, no, but no, what was,
Yeah.
the thought came to me, let's say if I were there, I would have said, so learn to love a man.
Well, I just said F you, you know,
Yeah,
my
that,
language, and probably
no, no.
will probably be happy I did that. So, so yes, my reaction for the audience would be, I have since then, we are now good friends, by the way. Um, you know, close, dear friends, and lean on each other for quite a few things. Growing up, I think teaches people a lot of stuff, and well, I think I am who I was. I think the other people have grown up to a certain extent. That's what I like to think. So my reaction to that was, that's okay. I don't have to be a girlfriend then. That was fine. My heart broke. You know,
Obviously, it should.
my heart broke because I loved him very much. And but I didn't want. I cannot fit into your life, because if your parents think you can love somebody only if I'm going to be a good daughter-in-law, because I don't want to be somebody's daughter-in-law. I just want to be somebody's companion, and that's
Yeah.
I'm sorry, and I'm
Yeah.
not going to be somebody's daughter-in-law, and I am me, and and I'm going to be loved for who I am. I just happen to be in a relationship with them as well eventually, because they're your parents. I'm going to have that relationship, and I would love to have a good one. But I'm not going to be somebody to have a relationship, and I'm going to be me. And um, it's famously Fanny Wills just said, man is not a plan, he is my companion. And I totally agree with her.
Kavitha, I was listening to your interview on Sochcast, and the way you narrated your story about you meeting with an accident, and your dad is a surgeon. He was supervising the surgery, or he did the surgery. I can't very
He did
well.
the complete surgery. Yeah.
And then the journey of mom. I think EQ flows in your family. And what is that secret recipe that you have such high emotional intelligence? What is that secret recipe? I really want you to share it with our listeners.
Yeah,
Your
but I
story.
think, I think before you do that, also please, talk about these two things, because I don't think that people understand or would actually understand the uh, gravity, I would say. I don't know what the right word is, but going through a surgery without anesthesia and other things, so this is like even when I was listening to those, I said, man, here's a woman that has defied almost every
Beaten all the
known.
odds. Yes.
I know, exactly.
Beaten
So
all the
please
odds.
share the backstory before you share the other thing.
Okay. So yes, I mean, that accident happened, almost killed me. I was in pieces, literally. Uh, Multiple broken bones, severe head injury. Side of my face is ripped. You can tell, actually, if you really closely watch my face, you can tell one face moves differently and the other one is a little pulled, because they had to pull the skin and put cover where it was all lost and all. I was only 15 at that time, so it did heal faster. But you can tell now, as the age takes its toll, right? Um, so I had multiple fractures in both my arms, completely popping out bones and all of that. And my face was ripped, my eye was damaged, my eyelid was torn, this whole cheekbone was completely in shatters. So it was like in pieces, so it had to be built back, right? So in that time, in the town where I had the accident, they didn't have any scans. So because of the severe bleeding that was happening through my, all the extremities, through my nose, my, my ears and all of that, they realized that there was bleeding internally happening in my head. So they had to get a scan to see what the severity of injuries is. And so about 30 minutes out of to another town where there was a university hospital in Andhra, that was where the only scan was available, the CT scan. So they had to put me in a car. So finding me was one other story, right? The driver who hit me himself put me in the bus and took me to hospitals. He put me in the government hospitals. My paper was find me there, and then take me to that CT scan, which was like, hours were running out, and I was bleeding out, and they didn't know if I would survive. So, but they couldn't treat me without the CT scan, so they got that done, brought me back to town where the surgery could be done, and then maybe probably 3-4 hours I've run past after this whole thing happened, and then they could not. They realized that after they saw the extent of the injuries to my head, they realized they could not give me anesthesia, because then I would go into a coma. I was already in a partial coma, so I would go into a full coma. I was completely out, and and they would then they started building the bones back, and this was all done by my father while I was screaming in that in subconscious state. I was screaming my lungs out, so they had to pin me down, no anesthesia, and to pin me down, and the whole hospital gathered in front of the the patients' relatives gathered in front of the operating theater because I'm like, this is girl screaming her lungs out for hours, not for a minute, because I had to put
Yeah,
my bones back
piece
in
by piece.
piece by piece, and piece by piece. My eye was torn, the whole thing, and this took hours. So this is girl screaming her lungs out. Maybe I passed out. I have no clue. So all stories told to me through the years. So and
Without any anesthesia. And here, we get
absolutely.
like a mosquito sting, and like we tend to run to the hospital.
Yeah. So I actually had training for this, by the way. I think when I was 6 or 7 years old, there was a cyst here that my father, then he removed it and stitched me up nicely, and warned me that I should not be going out to play. And if something happens, the stitches would, that they need to heal. So that evening, when my dad went to the hospital, I sneaked out, went to play. Again, that trait in me.
The rebellion nature.
Yes, Kavitha, the brave fool. So went out, voila, just that day, a friend of mine hit me with his knee here. Off, I mean, it's like had to happen, and the stitches opened up. So I come, I'm bleeding all over the place. I come home and my dad's back home and he's like, my mom sends a word saying she's bleeding, please come home. I come home. He lays me down on a mat and he says, this is a warning to you that if you don't listen, this is what is going to happen, and stitches me up without any anesthesia.
So the life was preparing you for it. Huh?
Oh my goodness. I'm like, I'm there. I'm conscious this time. This is not, I'm not unconscious or anything. I'm conscious. I have stitches to prove, you know? So yeah. And he stitches me up, 3 stitches, voila, there I go. And he says, now stay home for a week. And I stayed put for a week this time.
They pinned you, or you stayed willingly, you stayed at home?
Well, I had to be reminded every morning before I went to the hospital, what's going to happen. This time we're going to use a thicker needle. And I'm like, okay, fine. Scary. So, there it was. So, yes, I think, long story short, I was out for, I think, week, I don't know, I mean, week, 10 days, something like that. And then once I woke up, the first thing I asked my mom, can I see myself in a mirror? Because I was a horror story, but they didn't show me the mirror for quite some time until the whole stitches came off and all of that. My sister did take pictures of me though. I think once they removed the bandages and stuff, I do have pictures. So I look back and I can't relate to those pictures at all. It's like looking at somebody else. I can't relate to those pictures because I have no memory of me waking up that day, being late 5 minutes to go running and taking out my cycle. My dad kept telling me that you shouldn't go today because you're late. That's okay. It's your last day. And that was my last day of going running because from next day, my school was reopening. I'm in 10th grade. I was in 10th grade. So my board exam prep was going to happen in school. So my dad was telling me apparently not to go. But I still insisted, it's just 5 minutes, I'll go. And I rushed to the whole process and voila, here I am with the whole story. So I don't have no
But
memory.
that's what they say, right? What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I think, here's the example,
What
right?
didn't kill me
But
made
we
me
don't
more
want
foolish.
that. We
But
don't
my
want
dad
that.
would tell you, my dad would rephrase that for you. What didn't kill her made her more foolish.
Yes,
That's what he would tell you.
I know, I know,
Sure.
I know.
Hence
Yeah,
my statement becomes foolish because I'm brave, brave because I'm foolish. So
yeah.
yes, my emotional quotient, good question. I feel a lot, I feel everything, that was from the beginning, I think, I felt everything. I just narrated a story about my son, harboring these feelings of a man helping people, deprived or, less fortunate, and then crying because he had all these emotions welling up in his. I think he's very similar to, I am very similar something my sister said recently. She looked at an older picture of me. She said, "You look a lot like him." I'm like, that's weird. You should be saying he looks a lot like me, not
Yeah.
like a lot like him.
Yeah, the genes pass downwards,
Yeah.
not
Those,
upwards.
yeah,
And she said,
But that's what the children think.
yeah, that this is my sister saying that you look a lot like him. I'm like, okay, so it's like, now maybe even the feelings, I'm seeing him and I can relate to it. I was like that a lot, always feeling what others are feeling. I have this connect to people. When I see people, I have an instant connect. It's either this way or that way. I hate them or I like them. And if I like them for life. If I don't like them, I can never form a bond. I've never been able to fake it. I've never been able to create that bond. And they're not in my life. And
That's the way
it's
it should
just,
be.
yeah, they're not in my life. And they hate, and sometimes they try and they try and try and try, thinking that somehow they feel something for me, and they try a lot, and then I can't respond to that, and they eventually send me a really nasty message, or somehow but I'm trying to tell them, listen, this is as far as I can go in this bridge between us, and they can't hear it, and I'm blamed for it eventually, though I'm honest about it.
Good for that, I would say.
Yeah.
So, with the other thing that I think we need to we should discuss is very, very, I remember that, in Bangalore, when we met few times, on multiple discussions and topics, you shared some of your personal stories around, you were going through a tough time. And then you decided to have, this lovely boy, Simha.
Mhm.
I think, the audience would really get very enriched about, those struggles, and also, the power behind bursting through some of these social norms
And
of having a child
yeah, Kavita, when I
and
heard that
relationships.
name for the first time, Simha, which means a cub, the first thought that crossed my mind was "Sherni ke tit to sheri aanda hai." And you got context of that, but yes, that's what crossed my mind, and we would like to know your journey of motherhood, and uh, reason listeners. I'm saying this, Kavita will ponder more on this, but yes, over to you, Kavita.
Thank you for those kind words, Gunjan. Sherni, I like that. Thank you. I'm gonna take it. I have had a hard time taking compliments, but I'm gonna take that.
Thank you.
I feel it. I feel it in my heart, that Simha was meant to be in my life every day. And I look at my journey. It's almost like the whole journey happened for that moment to happen. The whole thing, the struggles, the life, the struggles, yes, of course. I mean, maybe we shouldn't even term them struggles. There are experiences that we go through, because we make those choices to be in that moment in life. We could always turn away from that. We could take the bend in the road. We choose to take whichever direction we take. We choose to make the choice that we make when we choose to do those. So why should we call them struggles? These are experiences we are going through because of what the choices that we make. And I was able to, I'd say, withstand those with a lot of help in my life. My parents are my strength. My siblings have, always, we have had our, I would say, disagreements. We have come to a place where now we agree to disagree and love each other. Right? There was a time when there was a lot of misunderstanding there as well, as to why I choose what I choose, why I go through what I go through. And the reasons behind that, maybe I kept them to myself. I didn't share those reasons as to why I was making some choices, because it was hard at that time to talk about those. While I was going through the struggles, it was hard to talk about saying, I'm making this choice because I just made the choice. I let them know my choice. So it was hard to understand, because unless you're going through those, it's hard to understand for other people. And sometimes you don't need them to understand. If there is love, there is love. they stand by you. But it is hard for them to kind of accept it one after another, right? So that is where love is tested usually between, in relationship.
Yes.
Love is that's
Yes.
it's
Very well
tested.
said.
Do you stand
And
by or do you stand aside?
even if you don't understand the person why they're choosing, that is where the world needs to understand that people
Yeah.
make choices. We can actually be better friends. Love doesn't have to be as a companion only. There's love between parents, love between, siblings, there's love between friends. Why can't there be love between friends?
Yep.
Love is love. There's love
We
between
we just talked about it, I think, in maybe a couple of episodes ago. But yes, exactly.
there's love between, there can be love between two girls and it doesn't have to be, physical. They can
Yes.
love between two boys, it doesn't have to be physical. Love between a boy and a girl doesn't have to be physical. And we cannot term love as enduring only if there is that physical connection. It can be enduring without any of those, with a great emotional connect, and you can lean on that love tremendously. And I have found that with so many of my friends and lasting relationships, through years. And I would say, I have that with Rajiv because there is such emotional connect with Rajiv for me, right? And we used to meet in cafe and, for lunches sometimes when he was, when he would, when I'd left India and he would come to India. And, and we would talk about this range of life's joys and, and the books that he would write from his experiences at airports. I found that was something different. I mean, wow. I mean, he's observing people and writing stories out of that without even talking to them. He's making up a story of what could have been happening in that moment. That
Yeah.
is that is understanding a person's journey, imagining it, writing it, and then that actually could be true. And that is empathy. That comes from a place of empathy, right? And that is what we're
Yeah.
missing in relationships. Empathy without conditions.
Very nicely put. I think exactly. Yes.
We
It's all
want
conditioned.
we want to tell them that we are there for them if they tell us everything. I don't need to know. I can be there for you. You don't need to tell me your secrets.
Yeah.
You don't need to tell me your life's burdens. And what sometimes you could be rude to me. I don't need to know what made you rude to me that day. You could have gone through a lot of crap to get there in that moment.
Yeah.
Because you're
It's
nice
not
to
a
me,
trade. It's not a transaction and no judgments.
not a transaction. I don't need to be, empathetic. And that is
Yeah.
where what you asked me, how can you, that emotional quotient comes from the fact that I don't need to know. I just need to feel. And I feel you. It's just that.
Very
That's,
nice. Very
yeah.
beautiful.
And that intelligence is beyond words. Like, it's not that when you'll be told you'll know everything. No. When you have that strong feeling, that strong emotion, and when you know without anyone uttering a word, that's what intelligence, emotional intelligence is all about. Not about someone just blurting out and then you'll find a solution or look for a solution together. But very well said, Kavitha. And uh, yes, you have transformed that very well. You have inherited it well from your dad, and Sim has inherited it well from you.
My
For
mother,
our listeners, please take us.
yes, yeah, my mother and my father both have extreme emotional intelligence.
And
Yeah, and
yeah, your journey of motherhood, Kavitha, that was truly inspiring because people get married for wrong reasons. And your story is one which is like, again, beating all the odds.
when we were young, and I'm still young, um, I would, my friends would say, I'll be the first one to have a child because among all of us, they assumed we have five, like, like a friend of mine calls us Pandavas, because we are very close since 1988. Our journey has been a journey together. We have grown together. We have shared, ups and downs together, everything and we still talk almost on everyday basis even today. 5 girls, who have been in my life. Um, and they used to always assume I'll be the first one to get married, first one to have a child and be a great mother, and I'm the last one to have a child. And their kids are all in college today, and mine is just going to be 8 in less than a month, right? So amazingly, so my life, I wanted to have a child, and the journey, the way it happened is that I got married, didn't work out, and then it took me 13 years to get divorced, complicated, complex. Not that I wanted it to be 13 years, because I was empathetic uh, to to the people involved on the other side. I don't want to, kind of, you know, bring that up, because it's the other people involved in that, whole story, not just the person I was married to. I was empathetic to that, to those people, and my lawyer, against my lawyer's wishes, against my lawyer's advice, against my lawyer's grandstanding of I will not take your case if you continue on this path. Um, you know, I was like, we're not going down the path of filing a criminal case or a bigamy case, something like that. Costed me 13 years of my prime life. Um, and a job that I worked very hard to get, very, very hard to come by for anyone in this world.
FBI, CIA, right?
FBI. I can just imagine Kavitha swinging. FBI, show me your hands. You just suit so much in that role. But yes, please continue.
Yes. So, uh, flashback, right? So, yes. So, I gave, it costed me all of that. And yet I stood strong about not bringing them into this. And so I had to fight for 13 years to complex. I had to fight that I was actually married, and then prove that the case that I had filed is invalid, and then get a divorce. Complex. So, we can talk about that as a completely different episode if you might. But because of all of that, I could not have a child. I had to wait to get a divorce to have a child. Because if I had a child before I get a divorce, I have to prove that the child is not his in court. How would I prove the child is not his when I don't even know where he is? He was never there for the cases. He was never there. He showed up once. The police, there were cases against him, so the police took him away. So, all of that happened. So I had to wait. So the whole journey had to be put on hold. My, realizing that my time to have the child was running out. So I was 42 when I had my child.
So you see, this is exactly two things.
By the way, I chose to have the child. It was not that.
Yes, and we will talk about that, because I want to, bring out two things that, the listeners need to reflect on. One is that almost, even in my own, friend circle and family, the circle that we belong to, the mothers tell their daughters, time is running out after 30. It's as if that, the earth will, the universe will collapse if you do not have a child before 30, right? It's like, and second, you have to be married to have a child. I think these are so independent things, and only a very independent person, bold and independent thinking person can think beyond this. And this was one thing that we had a discussion in one of the other episodes where Gunjan was making the statement that, hey, women don't want to be what was that? independent and bold, because then they will not find a life partner. And I would say, and I said my position was that only a woman that is not wanting to be independent and is not bold will make a statement like that. A woman who is bold and independent doesn't give a shit about, whether she will find a partner or not find a partner, and she will find the right partner who
Yes.
will appreciate for what she is.
Right.
So I wanted to interject and do my 30-second of speech before continuing on your fantastic journey.
Yes, well, at 36, I had gone to my gynecologist and spoke about freezing my eggs because I realized that this was, going to continue for a long time. Despite my best efforts by my lawyer to kind of wrap this up, as we just kept, it just kept going. We saw a ray of sunshine, I think, in 2012. With the High Court giving me the divorce, but with the condition that the checks that he had given would actually, be valid. But voila, no surprise there. Those checks were not valid, so I had to go back to court again. We didn't want those checks by first place. I didn't want the money. I just want my divorce and move on with my life. But somehow that just ended up becoming part of the judgment, despite our best efforts not to make that part of the judgment. My lawyer said, we don't want the money. We don't want these checks also. I went to them, said, don't make that conditional. Just give me the divorce. The checks we can just file another case for the checks if we want to, but they just became part of the judgment. And then I had to go back to court and then dragged on till 2015. So then again, I had to wait. So I wanted to, kind of, find a donor, do all of that. So I wanted to freeze my eggs. So that process started when I was 36. But then, life will have it. It went on. So I ended up being 42 to when I actually, but fate intervened. A lot of things happened in between. And I was 42 when I delivered. And and that moment, I considered it a very funny, you know why? A marathon is 40.
Okay.
Life was being ironic in its own way to me, because running is the common thread in my life. I felt that life also was being very ironic, that I would have.
Life always is.
I had to complete my marathon to get my medal.
So true. And yes, Sima is truly a medal for all of us, not just so, yes, a great reward that anybody can wish for.
I look at him every day and I wonder how I got so lucky. I mean, the joy that he brings, the old soul that he is, and unimaginable kindness and the depth that he shows. I mean, even I probably. So I'm reminded of my great-grandfather and my grandfather when I see him. He looks a lot like my father. Incidentally, all my parents' grandchildren, they all have this, my father's looks. They all look like him, and they all have this patience and kindness like my mother. And they all look like brothers. Actually, the 5 of them, the 5 grandchildren, the boys that my parents have, they look like brothers.
Good.
And yes, they do. And
we have Panch Pandavas again coming in and recreating the story.
Like there are common threads in my life that won't leave me. Right? Yeah, so amazing. And every day I look at him and I am reminded of, it's like a life past, bringing back my ancestors into this next generation, a quiet, peaceful, generous human being. And yes, of course, he asks about his father. He is, in some ways affected by it, but he has come to a conclusion that he's okay. He
He
wants me
will,
to.
just like Gunjan said, शेर नहीं शेर को पैदा करती
Sharing
है.
it to Sherry Anda, yes, he'll understand. Yes.
He will be.
Yeah, he says it's okay. He tells stories, all kinds of stories, but I don't know if I want to put it out there. But some other day maybe. So now he's like, when are you going to get married? I'm like, excuse me, I want a father, and I'm like, that's not how it's going to happen. That's not how it happens. You have a godfather. You have plenty of father figures. You have plenty of brothers. As male models, you have your grandfather. You have plenty of male models in your life. If you want to seek out, please go do that. That's not how it's going to happen. And so yes, I mean, and he loves his brothers that who have been in my, again, I think Rajiv knows that I have kind of fostered plenty of kids in my life, and some of them are part of our life still, and he has them coming and going, visit, they consider this home, so they come home literally for holidays. And he hates them. He has a hate love relationship with them because he hates them because they leave, and when they come he's like sticking to them all the time. And when they don't show up for holidays, they're like, please tell them not to come because they didn't show up for Christmas or whatever it is, that I hate them. So he has all kinds of names for them. He calls one Rowdy Baya, he calls one Shoe Baya. Aishu is his name. He calls him Shoe Baya. One is the Rowdy Baya because he has this complete hate relationship with him. He considers me my first child, so he hates him because he's in competition with him all the time.
Sibling rivalry.
Sibling rivalry, serious sibling rivalry. Even as a child, when he was 7-8 months old, he would look at him with severe anger. We have pictures to prove that. Yeah.
Yeah, and animals we can smell. So yeah. Maybe he knew this even when he was in your womb. So we can
Yes.
smell things. Yes. And they know more than we know.
I had a loving pregnancy, though I was all by myself. I had a great pregnancy. And I traveled to US when I was in the last day of my 8th month, last day that the airlines would let me travel. Went home to be with my parents to have the delivery there, so that I can have support. And I was active all through my pregnancy, ran, cycled, did yoga until almost like a couple of weeks till my delivery, and I had a great pregnancy. I did not feel alone. I had I had my Kitama who took care of me, my constant presence in my life. She was my I wouldn't call her my mate. She was my constant in my life, like a friend, housekeeper, everything while I was in India. And I had a great time. I was organizing races. I organized a race when I was 5 months pregnant, and none was wiser. Nobody figured out I was pregnant when I was fully 5 months pregnant. Pictures all over the place, but nobody.
Yeah, Facebook, I remember Facebook,
Yeah,
you used
as I
to
said,
post.
beating all the odds is our Kavitha.
I fell off the motorcycle when I was 5 months pregnant during the race. And, all kinds of things. Yeah, I had a great pregnancy and I wanted this child. He is wanted.
Yeah.
And,
I think, I believe in that this is where I think, I see pictures when you post on Facebook and all that. And I've seen him grow over the years. And that love and that affection and that bond shows up on his face. And I think what more can a child want or expect that he so much wanted to be born? I
yes,
think that it's
he's not he's not a mistake. He's not an accident. He's none of those. He was wanted. And I keep telling me I want a friend from your belly. I'm like, ain't happening. We can definitely adopt, we can, consider that for sure. We may do that eventually. So, yeah, and he is a gift to me, and that I gave myself.
Yeah, I think we can go on and on and on. I think, Kavitha, your journey has been just fascinating. And, thank you for being in my life for so many years. You're a treasure to have. But yeah, let's
It is
wrap up.
mutual.
I think,
Mutual. I love your books. I love the energy you put out, you give out. It's
thank,
the smile. Look at him. I mean, there is that. It's like Le Lama is well chosen, by the way. Uh,
thank you for that.
the Buddha in you, because there is this soft energy that you give out, and there is no way not to be drawn to it.
Thank
And
you.
True. That is true. Even through mails, I was drawn. So different story altogether. But yeah, my complaint that Rajiv did not introduce us way earlier. We have so much in common. But yes, Rajiv, we'll have a conversation maybe next time.
Yes.
But thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Kavitha, for enlightening our listeners. And last piece of advice on EQ that you would like to give to our listeners.
uh, see, the emotions need to come from you, not the other way around,
Right.
right? You need to feel what the other person may feel or not feel at times for you to be who you are in a relationship, in a friendship, even if it is just somebody who works for you. um, if you're expecting them to bear their heart, and then you validate it for you to feel something for them, then you are actually taking something out of you that you could feel. You're not letting yourself feel. You're only reacting to it, which will not last, and you will not grow with it.
True.
So your emotions should be constant. They should be growing with you, constant in the sense they should be following you. They should be growing with you. And it should reach a point where you don't need anybody's validation to feel what you feel. You don't need anybody's explanation to feel what you feel for them, for you, for the world, and for your everyday life, for you to grow. You need to be feeling constantly. This feeling is not a reaction.
Hmm.
Feeling is a constant so it goes up and down. You feel down, you also feel down. There is also emotional quotient because you're reacting to your state of mind. So you feel
Right.
down some days, you feel high some days. That is also your own emotional quotient reacting to your own feelings. You should recognize that. So be kind to yourself when you're feeling down, and be grounded when you're feeling high.
Yeah.
Very, very well said, Kavitha. Kavitha, Rajiv has written one Kavitha for this whole episode. Rajiv, over to you. Can you please share that?
So I have to confess, I did not write it specifically for this. I had written this, actually I had improvised it. I had heard a song or something long back, so the couple of words caught me, so I improvised on that. And I was reflecting or thinking of, preparing for this episode, and I thought this fits Kavita's type of personality very well. So I'm going to recite it. It's not like a short, two-liner that I typically, share. So bear with me for a couple of minutes. शोला हूं कि आगू हूं मैं, ये पास आके देख. पानी हूं कि शराब हूं मैं, तो घूंट लगा के देख. दिल की चीख हूं मैं या रूह का राग हूं, मुझे गुनगुना के देख. क्या है वजूद मेरा, मुझ में समा के देख.
Very well. Thank you, Rajiv.
Really
Thank you.
touched my heart with that. And we'll see, who's going to Nashaya, Nisha, who knows?
The life
Life will,
unfolds on
Yes.
its own path.
And it's
absolutely.
time we rewrite those narratives, who we
Absolutely.
are. And
And you're doing in your own way as well, Gunjan.
yes,
And so is Rajiv. Blessed am I to have you all in my life. Thank you so
feeling
much.
is mutual, Kavitha.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for joining, and thank you so much for listening. Do visit our website, thelielama.com, THELILLAMA.com. We'll be more than happy to host you. Be brave, be who you are. Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.